All right, let's dive into the world of Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Specifically, his fascination with the supernatural.
Ah, yes.
And it seems like you, our listeners, have given us some seriously interesting material to work with this time. We've got the Rime of the Ancient Mariner,
Classic.
Kubla Khan,
Oh, favorite.
and even sections from his Biographia Literaria. I think it's safe to say you really want to get to the bottom of what makes his exploration of all things supernatural so captivating.
Yeah, what keeps drawing us back to these stories even centuries later.
Exactly. So let's not waste any more time. Let's jump right in.
Sounds good.
Now, Coleridge, he wasn't just some guy who enjoyed spooky stories, was he?
Oh, not at all. I mean, his work goes so much deeper than that. He's wrestling with some pretty big universal questions.
Yeah.
The nature of reality, the power of the human imagination, what we can and can't actually perceive.
Wow. Okay, so we've got this English poet, literary critic, philosopher, born in 1772, died in 1834. Big name in the Romantic movement. But what made him tick? What made him so interested in these, dark, almost, otherworldly themes?
Well, for starters, he had a pretty unconventional upbringing. His father was a clergyman, died when Coleridge was young.
So maybe a sense of loss and mystery early on.
Could be. But it seems like it really instilled in him this deep curiosity about the world, a fascination with the mysterious, the unknown. And on top of that, he was intellectually gifted,
Right.
but also struggled with addiction, had a draw to radical politics in his younger years.
So it's like maybe a bit of a tortured soul then, up to that romantic cliche.
Maybe. Maybe a little bit. But I think it's that tension, between light and darkness, reason and emotion.
Oh, I see. Like it fueled his work.
Exactly. And you can't forget his time in Germany, studying philosophy, particularly the works of Kant, Schelling, and Fichte.
Yeah, I remember reading a bit about that.
Really shaped his views on the imagination.
Okay. Now, we can't talk about Coleridge without mentioning his buddy, William Wordsworth, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they work together a lot?
Absolutely. Their friendship and their creative partnership, it was massively important for both their careers. They really pushed each other, explored new poetic forms, bounced ideas back and forth.
That's cool. Kind of like iron sharpens iron, I guess.
Exactly. But, even with their close collaboration, there was always something about Coleridge. He was seen as the more, I don't know how to put it.
Enigmatic.
Yeah, maybe. More troubled. There's no denying his brilliance, but it seemed to always come at a cost.
Interesting. Okay, so let's get into the poems themselves. We have to talk about the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Probably his most famous work, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's up there.
What is it about that poem? It's just such a gripping story, and the imagery, it's so haunting,
Well, think about the form. It's a ballad. And those traditionally deal with supernatural themes, tragic events. So he's working within this existing framework, but telling a story that's both thrilling and really unsettling.
Yeah, and the way he describes the albatross, I get chills just thinking about it hanging around the mariner's neck. It's such a powerful symbol of guilt and consequence.
Exactly. It's not just some scary story. He's asking us to consider guilt, redemption, the power of stories themselves. That's one reason it's still so powerful, I think.
Totally. Okay, and it starts with the mariner's just telling his tale to some random wedding guest. Why that framing device, do you think?
Oh, it's so clever. Think about it. It forces us as readers to be like that guest. We're captivated by this strange and unsettling story.
We can't look away.
Right. Almost like the mariner has this hypnotic power, We have to listen even if we don't want to.
And that imagery. The ghostly ship, the mariner's gaze, the albatross as this symbol of nature's power. It's tapping into some primal fear.
And don't forget, he's not just tormented by outside forces. It's his own guilt and remorse eating away at him.
Yeah, his internal struggle is reflected in all the supernatural stuff that's happening.
Exactly.
Now, Kubla Khan is a totally different vibe. It's dreamlike, fragmented almost.
Well, it literally came from a dream.
Really?
Coleridge said he wrote it after waking up from this opium-induced vision.
Oh.
He was interrupted while writing it down and couldn't quite get back to that vision.
Oh, that's frustrating.
So we're left with this tantalizing fragment.
Yeah, I can see that. It's still beautiful, though. The setting is incredible with the pleasure domes, the gardens, the forests. It's like you're transported to another world.
It is. Coleridge himself called it a psychological curiosity.
Interesting word choice.
Right, a product of his imagination in this heightened state.
Okay, so is this where his theories about fancy and imagination come into play.
Exactly. He saw Kubla Khan as an example of imagination, the mind's ability to create entire new worlds, blend things that don't seem to fit together.
And how's that different from fancy?
He goes into this in Biographia Literaria. To him, fancy is more about playing with existing images, ideas. It's fun, decorative.
Okay.
But imagination, that's a higher function. It's creating, transforming, bringing something entirely new into being.
So like the Rime of the Ancient Mariner would be more fancy,
Yeah.
and Kubla Khan is more imagination.
Not quite. Both poems use both. It's about the balance, the purpose. Rime uses fantasy to explore these moral and psychological themes, while Kubla Khan, it's about the raw creative power of the mind.
I see. So Biographia Literaria is where he lays out all of this.
It is. It's his major work of literary criticism and autobiography. In chapter 13, he describes the imagination as having this esemplastic power.
Esemplastic power. What does that even mean?
It's a mouthful, right? Basically, it's the power to shape and mold, to bring together all sorts of different things and make them into one unified whole.
Like creating something new, coherent out of what seems random.
Yes, and for Coleridge, that's what true poetry does. Takes language, experience, imagination, and creates something beautiful and meaningful.
That's pretty deep. Can we tie this back to his fascination with the supernatural at all?
Absolutely. For Coleridge, the supernatural wasn't just ghosts and monsters. It was a way to explore the mysteries of the human mind, the limits of what we can understand, the possibility of going beyond what we see every day.
So it's about exploring the unknown.
Yes.
Okay, we've talked about the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Kubla Khan, and Biographia Literaria. What about Coleridge the person? What about his interest in dreams and the subconscious?
He saw dreams as this window into how the mind works, a place where what's real and what's fantasy blur together.
So in a way, his poems are like dreamscapes, inviting us to enter these worlds where anything is possible.
Exactly. And by doing that, they make us question what we believe is real, what's true, what matters.
I like that. Makes me want to revisit those poems, see them as invitations to explore my own imagination.
That's exactly what Coleridge would have wanted.
I think that's part of why his work is still so captivating. He doesn't give us easy answers. We have to think, to explore the unknown alongside him.
And that's what makes him such a brilliant and enduring artist.
But there's more to uncover about Coleridge, right?
Oh, yeah. Always more to discover, especially with a mind as complex and multifaceted as his.
Well, then let's take a break here and come back to delve even deeper into the mysteries of Coleridge and the supernatural.
You know, before we move on, there's this quote from Coleridge about dreams and ghosts in Biographia Literaria that I think is really interesting here.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
He says, "Difference between stories of dreams and ghosts. In dreams, we ourselves create the terrors, but in ghost stories, the terror is ready-made for us."
Okay, so he's saying, like, in dreams, the fear comes from inside us.
Right. It's our own creation. But with ghost stories, that fear is coming from outside. It's already there.
Interesting. And do you think that helps us understand how he's using the supernatural in his own work?
Absolutely. I think it's a key distinction.
So, like, in the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, for example, is the mariner haunted by, I don't know, actual supernatural forces? Or is it more about his own guilt and stuff?
It's tricky, right? Because there are definitely supernatural elements in the poem. You've got the ghost ship, those weird creatures, the whole sense of cosmic justice.
Yeah.
But at the same time, so much of his torment comes from what he did, his own choices. Killing the albatross. It's like his inner turmoil is being projected onto the world around him.
That's deep. Makes you think about how we often create our own fears, you know?
Oh, totally. And Coleridge seems to be suggesting that the most terrifying things are often the ones we cook up in our own minds.
Well, wait. He also believed in those ready-made ghost stories, right? He even wrote a few himself.
He did, and I think he saw a value in them. Like, they tap into our basic fears, those anxieties about the unknown. They give us a way to confront those fears, but in a safe way.
It's like watching a horror movie. We get a thrill from being scared, but we know it's not really happening.
Exactly. And for Coleridge, those shared fears, those ready-made terrors, they're part of what connects us as humans.
But he's not just retelling the same old ghost stories, right? He's doing something more with them.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's using those familiar elements, those tropes, but he's going deeper, exploring the human psyche, you know, asking those big questions about guilt, redemption, what's real and what's not.
And that's why his work still resonates with people today.
I think so, because fundamentally, we're still grappling with those same questions. We're still fascinated by the mysteries of the mind, the power of imagination, the idea that there might be something more out there.
It's like he's giving us permission to think about those things, to embrace the strange and the uncanny.
Right. And in doing that, he's pushing us to expand our understanding of what it means to be human.
Okay, so we've covered a lot about Coleridge, his life, his influences, the poems, his ideas about imagination. But what does this all mean for us today? Why should we care about a poet who is so into albatrosses and opium dreams?
Honestly, I think Coleridge offers us something really important, especially now. He reminds us of the power of imagination, how vital it is to engage with the unknown, to not shy away from those big, maybe even uncomfortable questions.
It's like he's saying it's okay to be fascinated by this strange, the stuff that creeps us out, but also makes us want to know more.
Exactly. And in doing so, he helps us understand ourselves a little better.
Okay, so we've talked about his work, these big ideas.
Yeah.
But what about Coleridge, the person? How did his own struggles, with addiction, with those philosophical questions, how did that feed into his exploration of the supernatural?
Well, think about it. Addiction itself can be like a haunting, right? It takes control of your life, twists your perception of reality.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And his philosophical explorations, those led him to question the very nature of reality, what we can actually know.
So it wasn't just about escapism for him. He was really trying to make sense of the world, grapple with these huge concepts.
Exactly. And that's why his work still feels so relevant today, I think, because we're still asking those same questions, trying to figure out our place in the universe, what's real and what's not.
You mentioned earlier how Coleridge was such a master of language. How does that play into the whole supernatural vibe of his work?
He's a genius with sound and rhythm. Like, he uses alliteration, assonance, internal rhyme, all these techniques to create a sense of unease, of otherworldliness.
It's true. It's like his poems have this hypnotic effect. It's almost like he's, I don't know, casting a spell.
It is. And the way he mixes that old-fashioned language with these super vivid, almost hallucinatory images, it's like he's channeling something ancient and primal, something that taps into our deepest instincts.
It's not just reading a story. It's like experiencing it. And
Why?
it sticks with you.
Right. He's creating an experience using language to evoke a really visceral, almost spiritual reaction in the reader.
So where does that leave us? We've talked about Coleridge's life, his work, these big ideas about imagination. But what does it all mean for us? Why should we care about a poet from centuries ago who's obsessed with the supernatural?
Because I think Coleridge gives us something incredibly valuable, especially in our modern world. He reminds us about the power of imagination, the importance of embracing mystery, and grappling with the big questions, even if they make us uncomfortable.
It's like he's giving us permission to be curious about the strange, the uncanny, the things that both delight and frighten us.
Exactly. And in doing that, he helps us understand ourselves a little better, our place in the universe and the mysteries that still surround us. It's funny, isn't it?
What's that?
I mean, it's not just what Coleridge is saying, it's how he says it.
Ah, yeah, like his use of language.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The guy was a master of sound and rhythm. All those literary techniques, alliteration, assonance, internal rhyme, they all work together.
To create that, hypnotic effect.
Yes. Almost like an incantation or something.
It's true. And the way he blends that, old-timey language with these intensely vivid, almost hallucinatory images.
Right.
It's like he's channeling something deep, ancient, primal, something that just resonates way down in us.
Totally. He's not just telling stories, he's crafting these experiences that stick with you long after you've finished reading.
Yeah, it's not just reading, it's like feeling it.
Exactly. It's visceral, almost spiritual, the way he uses language to evoke such a powerful response in the reader.
So, okay, big picture time. We've talked about Coleridge's life, his influences, the poems, his ideas about imagination, even dreams and the subconscious. But what does it all mean for us today? Why should we still care about a poet who was so obsessed with, albatrosses and opium dreams?
I think Coleridge offers us something incredibly valuable, especially in our modern world. He reminds us of the power of our imaginations, the importance of embracing mystery, and, not being afraid to grapple with those big questions.
Even if they're a little uncomfortable.
Even if they're a little uncomfortable. Yeah.
Like he's giving us permission to be curious about the weird stuff, the uncanny stuff.
Exactly. The things that both kind of creep us out, but also make us want to know more. And in doing that, I think he helps us understand ourselves a little bit better.
And our place in this, pretty mysterious universe. Well, this has been a fascinating journey exploring Coleridge's world with you. I feel like I have a whole new appreciation for his genius.
And I hope this deep dive has inspired you all to, pick up some Coleridge, delve a little deeper, see what treasures you might find.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for guiding us through this incredibly complex and fascinating terrain. It's been truly enlightening.
My pleasure. And remember, folks, the journey doesn't end here. There's always more to explore, more to discover when it comes to the world of Samuel Taylor Coleridge.
Well said. Till next time, happy diving, everyone.